Okay. Okay, we're beginning where it says Shir Beis. Hakagama. So last week we spoke about relating to the whole area of Torah of Musar as a Chachma Amuka, as a very deep wisdom. As the Mesilas Yesharim himself writes, that it's erroneous to think that this area of Torah, of the Musar, or called Yiras Hashem, is for simple-minded people. And people that maybe don't have the sufficient intelligence to delve into the other deeper areas of Torah or of Gemara or other learning. That's a mistake. And because this is an area of Torah that is actually a Chachma Amuka, very deep wisdom. And not to be fooled by how it may be presented in Svarim sometimes as just being sort of advice or teachings. In the words of Rav Mottel, he called this Heilige Psychologia, holy psychology. And it's deeper than psychology, we mentioned last time, because whereas psychology studies the psyche of the person, this area of Torah, Musar, Chasidus, mostly Chasidus, drives right to the soul, quite literally, right to the neshama. And it dares to go into an area of Torah that others don't even have words for. Once you get into the study of Chasidus, then you start to touch on areas of Torah that others don't have an entryway into. That's why I mentioned. That's why sometimes when you get into the spiritual areas of Torah, the people that are small-minded don't have a place for it in their mind, because it goes beyond the rational, it goes beyond the mind, and it goes into an area that people are less comfortable with because they don't have familiarity with it, they don't have concepts for it. It's not coming from a place of experience. It's written by tzaddikim, they're writing from a place of experience. And the words the Tanya, people from that area are coming from the Seichel Anoshi. Seichel Anoshi is human intelligence. And as such, it's very limited. So those types of people I would call Leitzanim. People that they hear something spiritual and they scoff at it because they don't have a place for it, which the Mishlei would call them Leitzanim. People that mock serious matters because they don't have and understanding of it, the area of Chassidus really is this area of Torah, goes into the whole area of the nefesh, as I mentioned yesterday, and gives understanding and approach and words and concepts and feelings and mahalchim, whole ways of what these things are. So this is the area of Torah we broadly call Musar. It's a Chachma Mukar. As Mishlei says, Reishis Chachma Yiras Hashem. It's the beginning of wisdom. The person really wants to get into this wisdom, Yiras Hashem. You have to begin with Yiras Hashem, and Yiras Hashem becomes the vessel for this Chachma. And that too is a big surprise. In other words, the relationship between hashkafa, perspective, and behavior and being with wisdom. That's a surprise also. Usually when a person goes into an area of wisdom, so you learn the elementary ideas, the concepts in that field, and then you go deeper, and then you're exposed to greater detail until you have greater mastery of the subject. But that chachma, wisdom, should be preceded by yiras Hashem, which is hashkafa, how you view something and how you are. That should be the introduction to chachma is a surprise. And as you tell somebody, listen, the way you're going to master this area, imagine, Professor, if you would tell your students, imagine the way you're going to master this area of wisdom is by behaving like a mensch. And I want you to watch how you eat and watch what you say and your relationship between men and women. They're not going to believe you. They're going to enter into a different class. Because that doesn't really align. Those things will align. But that's what Mishlei is saying. Reishis Chacham Yiras Hashem. So today, we'll begin with the heading on the bottom of the page in bold. Chovas Hadracha Aidei Rebbe Movak. It's a very, very, very Yesodistic piece here. Very foundational piece that Rav Mottel will lead us on today. Two lines from the bottom, on the left column. And one of the foundational points and conditions for attaining this wisdom is the following. It's necessary to be led on this path by a Rebbe and a Mora Derech, someone that guides you. Masters of Musar, they really wanted to attain this wisdom. They weren't just going to classes. They were really after it. They sought after a guide. That would guide them in this wisdom. That's how they merited to be elevated. And to delve deeply. To delve into it with a straight sort of depth. And there was an accurate depth. And to really attain it in its full clarity. I've told the story before, but it's such a beautiful story. I don't remember who the tzaddik was, but he was. It's brought in one of the Svarim. At the end of the Sefer, there's stories about his life. So he writes there about how he sought very desperately to find a Rebbe. And he went to different tzaddikim. He went to Rabbi Zusha, and he spent time with Rabbi Zusha. He went to this tzaddik called Rav Yevi. And each tzaddik, he spent a certain amount of time, and after a while, he said, I've learned a lot from this person, but he's not my Rebbe. And they kept on moving and moving. And so one day, he was walking on the road, and the Sefer describes it like this. He's walking on the road, and he saw, it was a Shleim of Karlin. He saw a Shleim of Karlin was sitting on the side of the road on a pile of rocks. And Rav Shlomo of Karlin saw him. He said to him, Shalom Aleichem. And he said, that moment, he knew this was my Rebbe. He said, because what went inside of him, he said, was the feeling of Mora Shamayim. He had an incredible, intense feeling of Yiras Shamayim, overcome with awe and reverence of God. And the Gemara says, Mora Rabchas Kamara Shamayim. The fear, the reverence you have for your Rebbe is like the reverence you have for Hashem. So he's overcome in that encounters at Shalom Aleichem. He had this feeling of Yiras Shamayim. He knew this was my Rebbe. So Rav Mottel writes, "Umaso b'Chasidim tafas inyan zu makom gadol ma'od." In the path of Chasidus, this whole area took up an incredible place, a place of very great prominence of searching and having a Rebbe. It was in a way and a level as extremely exalted. In other words, in Musar, in the Derech of Musar, among the very, very serious Bali Musar, there was a pursuit to find a Rebbe. And among the great Bali Musar, they were very, very attached to their Rebbe and as a guide, and sought that. That was by particular Bali Musar, master of Musar. But in Chasidus, it became a foundation in Chasidus for everyone, that one should search for a Rebbe. Uvetchilas darka shel derech hachasidus befrat hayizaki yisod v'chol kavua. In the beginning of the path of Chasidus, when it first began, specifically, this was a fundamental and essential point. Sha'al kol inyane avodas Hashem tzrichen Rebbe umora derech. And all matters of the service of God, that one's in need of a teacher. Sheyadrich oso ba'omek chachmas darchei avoda, that one would be guided in the depth of the wisdom of the path of service, lahatosa al derech haslula v'habatucha, to be taken on a direct and secure path. In other words, when you look at that derech, as we described, the derech means that you have essential concepts and practices that a person sticks to, develops in, and as one does, there becomes an opening, an understanding of these ideas, and an opening of the nefesh, the soul, and a development to higher points of service of God through it. That is simply what a derech is. describes a derech. In other words, it's not just I'm doing a mitzvah here, I'm doing a mitzvah there, but it's like a path, just like a person follows a road. So the road is paved out, it's made out of many, many possibilities, right? So you take this road, or this path, and it may veer off from here and take you to there, but eventually it takes you to somewhere. And it was made by developers, people that develop roads, that had to navigate through mountains, through difficult terrain to sort of carve the path. So it's a similar thing in Ruchnius, spirituality. So you have a derech. In other words, you have many obstacles, many challenges for a person in terms of thinking, in terms of living, right? Relationships with people, challenges in life, and everything like that. And then one draws from essential points of what is important for the development of the neshama, the soul. And one goes with that, one continues in that, one develops in that. And that is essentially what we call a derech, a path. So it's not haphazard, it's not sort of, whatever, but there is a very certain sort of path to it. So Mottel says, in as much as in the world of Chasidus, this path of Chasidus, there's become a very great distancing from the roots of the path of Chasidus. This has become very weakened. This idea of having a Rebbe has become weakened. Aval b'shorsha, in its root, uv'tchilasa, in its origins, hayaderach hachasidus miyucha. The path of Chasidus, the Baal Shem Tov, was specific. Lebalei avoda gedolim, for people, masters of service, great masters, v'na'alim, elevated people, shechipsu acharei Rebbe u'moreh derech. They were searching for a Rebbe and for a guide. Sheyadrich v'yalamidosam, that would guide them on a derech b'avodas Hashem, as a path to the service of God. In other words, in sort of, we would say, in history, in the Chasidus began with the Baal Shem Tov sort of having Talmidim, and these Talmidim, these students who have extremely high caliber in terms of their Torah knowledge and in their personal spiritual development. Like this is the Maggid of Mezrich, who was becoming the prime disciple, was extremely big person before he came to the Baal Shem Tov. Extremely big person. These people were highly, highly knowledgeable in all areas of Torah. It says the Maggid of Mezrich had learned hundreds of svarim of Kabbalah before he came to the Baal Shem Tov, and really humbled himself to the Baal Shem Tov. All those students that told us Yaakov Yosef and of Nachman of Haridanka, Degel Machane Ephraim, all these people were extremely, extremely developed, very, very high. And if you look in the original teachings of the Baal Shem Tov, these are very, very high teachings. These are not simple teachings, how what he was guiding them. But they were looking for a Rebbe. They were looking for a guide. And the Baal Shem Tov showed them a different path. Same thing with the Talmidim of the Maggid of Mezrich. The Talmidim of the Maggid of Mezrich were giants of people. But they were looking for a path. They were looking for a Rebbe. So, as much as it's more familiar to people that the Baal Shem Tov and others who are sort of popular teachers to the masses, the truth is that it was much more of an inner circle of highly developed Chachamim and Tzaddikim that the Baal Shem Tov was guiding in personal teachings. That's the origins. And they were looking for a guide. Someone that would illuminate one's eyes in having greater perceptions of things. People didn't go to a Rebbe to hear how the Rebbe davened or to be inspired by his words. Even though that's a very important thing. That wasn't the main thing. It wasn't founded on that. So essentially, it was a path in Avodas Hashem that people that were very serious about the pursuit sought after a Rebbe. And the derech. V'chein b'tchilas darko shaderech hachasidus lo haya meyusad hakesher l'Rebbe al inin nesiya l'yom tov hayom depagra. It wasn't founded on traveling to a Rebbe for Yom Tov, for Rosh Hashanah, or for any Yom Tov, or Yom Depagra, a day that was not, a day of learning. First off, many Chasidim, they themselves were Rabbanim. These were rabbis of cities, of towns. They couldn't leave their communities for Yom Tov. So Mottel is describing today, it's more popular. People go to this Rebbe for Yom Tov, for that Rebbe for Yom Tov. That wasn't what it was about. Even those that weren't Rabbanim, that wasn't founded on this idea. Chasidim. That means from old, days of old. The old days of old, these old Chasidim. There wasn't this great emphasis on traveling for Yom Tov. The main receivers of this were people of exalted stature. What they would do is they would travel for a certain time of the year and spend time with the Rebbe. So then they would go for a month, and they would just completely live with that tzaddik. And by spending time there, they would learn a path in avodah. It's not just inspiration, not just going somewhere to be inspired, but really to learn a path. What is the derech that this tzaddik is going on, and that I will want to follow. They would do this by looking very deeply into the practices of the tzaddik. And here's the main point. Through spending time there, it would be guided in the depth of the point that one would need to search after in avodah. In other words, what is the foundations of this path? What's the main point here? Not just, well, you had a good time. It was very inspiring. We enjoyed the singing. But there's some very fundamental nakudos, points here, to understand, to absorb, and to watch how it's actually done. And each path essentially is an emphasis of nakudos, is an emphasis of points. And each tzaddik had his derech, his path, according to the root of his soul, what are these essential points that were emphasized by him and how it was developed. It was a difficult service to receive the path correctly. Ulis amigba, to delve into it. Ulahavina al buryo, and to understand it clearly. So I'll try to give a little context for everything he's saying and some understanding for ourselves. We could see this really by understanding what a Rebbe is in two different ideas, two different concepts. One is when we're speaking about what we really call a tzaddik. So when we talk about a Rebbe, it could be speaking about someone that's really a tzaddik. Now, to explain what a tzaddik is beyond this year, but very simply, a tzaddik is a different type of neshama. This is a neshama of a different type, different order. Let's explain this. If Chasidus, a tzaddik is not simply someone that is righteous. A tzaddik is not someone that's a good guy. And the tzaddik isn't what we just call any 6-year-old. The Mottel was saying once a person came to, I think it was the previous Tuchina Rebbe, and he was describing a certain person, and he said, he's a tzaddik. So we said, how is he a tzaddik? So Mottel said, don't give the appellation away so simply. To be a tzaddik, it's not just a simple thing. So when we talk about the tzaddik and the true meaning of it, it's very, very far from how it's used and how it's commonly understood. A tzaddik is a neshama of a different madrega. And in other words, it's a madrega, it's a level of a neshama. And it is made that way. Now, the tzaddik has to develop himself into a tzaddik. That's true. Because the tzaddik has to develop his being that he expresses that neshama. But that's a neshama of a higher order. And we don't call another person that's righteous tzaddik. It's a very precious term that is sort of abused. Misused.
The similar word tzedek, right?
Yes.
It's not tzaddik. It's a different word.
Tzaddik is in the word tzedek. That's the shoresh. Yes.
But if the word that you're talking about, just meaning righteous, would be tzedek, right?
Yes, but the word tzedek means to be just. It says tzedek tirdovt. Just.
Right.
So now this when we talk about tzaddik, so first of all we're talking about a neshama gavoa, a high neshama, a neshama of a different type. And the Sefer Tanya speaks in depth about this type of neshama. That is sort of Aleph. What's one type of Rebbe? We're talking about a tzaddik. Now, I'm going to give a deeper idea. And just we'll try to just talk about it. And like all ideas in Ruchnius, it takes time to grasp it. When we talk about a tzaddik, not only talking about a higher neshama, but it's also called a neshama klalis, a sort of a neshama that incorporates a lot, includes a lot. In other words, the neshama of a tzaddik is not only higher, but it actually includes sort of, we would say, smaller neshamos within it, attached to it. So, sort of, if you want to visualize it, you have like, again, this is just for visualization purposes, right? Concept. You see, you have like a circle or a bubble, and within that you have smaller bubbles, circles. So the neshama of a tzaddik is neshama klas. It includes other neshamas with it as well. So that there is a relationship between the sort of the smaller type of neshama and the greater neshama that's there. And there's an attachment, a relationship between the two.
So you're saying that the neshama of the tzaddik kind of represents his community to those souls who are attached to their Rebbe?
It's more than represents. As I said, just leave it for as I expressed it for now. It's more than represents. It is. It is.
Okay.
So what happens is that when what can happen is that a particular neshama recognizes that it belongs to a greater neshama. And that's what was happening in that story. That person. Is because his neshama, his essence, his spiritual essence, belonged within this greater tzaddik. In other words, it's like finding a deeper part of yourself. The root. So it's a very deep thing spiritually that's really expressed through that story. Again, because these things are sometimes very similar, it's in our experience not so easy to understand. In other words, you contrast that with, let's say, you have a charismatic person who's got a lot of charisma, which could be a very nice thing. That's not necessarily a tzaddik, right? And you're attracted to that. That's not a tzaddik necessarily. And that's not someone that your neshama is under that in that sense. It's different. It's not to say that's a bad thing. It could be a good thing. It could be a very bad thing. But that's not a tzaddik. So that's what I first want to explain. You talk about a Rebbe. One type of Rebbe is really a genuine tzaddik. Really a tzaddik. And as a tzaddik, I say there are neshama gavodah, there are a higher neshama. They've done the avodah, the work, to really raise themselves and to express this neshama gavodah, this high neshama they're given. And within their greater neshama, they include others that are within them. As an aside, just I'll mention that I was reading some beautiful teachings from Rabbi Shlomo Freifeld, who was the Rosh Yeshiva in Far Rockaway, who founded the Shar Yashav community. It was a very, very special Rebbe. And Yitzchak Galler shared with me many of the original teachings from Rav Shlomo. And Rav Shlomo wrote that in this past week's parsha, that this was a mistake that Korach made. Korach said he wanted to be a Kohen Gadol, Right? Korach wanted to be in these high positions. And Rabbi Shlomo said, what Korach didn't understand was, in these high positions, you have to be a neshama gavo, you have to be a high neshama. You have to be this type of neshama. You could be a very great person, as Korach was. You could be a very developed person, as he was. But it's of a different order. That was Moshe Rabbeinu. That was Aaron HaKohen. You cannot mistake yourself for being of that type. You're not in that order. You're not in that league. You're a different type of neshama. You're a very, very special Levi, but you're not a Kohen Gadol. Kohen Gadol and a Melech is not someone that, well, they were worthy. Their father was the king, so they became the king. They're the greatest of all the Kohanim, so they became the Kohen Gadol. It's a neshama gavo. It's a high neshama. That's what it is, really, in the essence of what a Kohen Gadol is and what a Melech is. And Korach mistakenly thought that he can be in that place. So that's one type of Rebbe. So what happens is that a person can really feel that their shoresh, their root, is really, they sense their greater self when they meet this tzaddik. That's what happened in the story. That's an extremely, extremely deep experience that, very, very great people would have and understand as an experience. To take that point take that idea to the next point. And that is, so when a person, like these tzaddikim I'm describing, when they would meet these great people, and they would become attached to them, so there was a couple of things that were going on. First of all, recognizing that they sort of belonged within this tzaddik, there was a bittul that happened. Bittul means they saw themselves, their I, as being beyond their individual self and belonging to within this tzaddik, and they were prepared to surrender their personal self to the tzaddik. And that was fundamental, the derech HaChasidus of bittul. You surrender yourself to the tzaddik. And that surrender would be like being prepared to follow the advice of the tzaddik completely. In a way that a person would supposed to completely follow Hashem, with complete bittul. Person would give themselves to the tzaddik, completely batal. So in other words, their whole I, we speak about the anochius, that is this separate self, that didn't exist. It was their I belonged to this tzaddik, and they were completely prepared to accept the advice, the words, the guidance, the directions of the tzaddik without reservation. It's complete and total surrender. If you read anything about Rav Nosson, right? Rav Nosson was Rav Nachman's Talmud, then you understand what I'm talking about. Rav Nosson was completely given over to Rav Nachman. Completely surrendered himself to Rav Nachman. And the truth is that that's when a person would really grow. when the person really completely surrenders himself like that, that's when Aliyah really happens. Because you let go of all those things that are not correct, that are false. And you just give yourself over to the emes, the truth. And that's when these people would really take off. They would just give themselves over completely. Rav Nosson writes of, that he would roll on the earth over spikes to reach Rav Nachman. That encounter was such truth, so powerful, so overwhelming, that the person completely broke all that individuality. It's overwhelming type of experience. Now, with that, one of the contemporary tzaddikim wrote that what really was happening when one would meet a tzaddik like that was the tzaddik was showing you your own root. In other words, when a person meets the tzaddik, it's not just that they're wowed, overwhelmed by that, but the tzaddik was really showing the person the root and the heights of their own neshama. Right? Okay, this is how Shlomo Carlebach said it. He said, when, what's a Rebbe? He said, not someone that teaches you Torah, someone that connects you to the highest place in heaven. In other words, the tzaddik, it's not about the tzaddik necessarily, but it's about tzaddik showing the highest point of the person to the person. Right? So in other words, like you have a glimpse of how high you are, how great the neshama is. And that would happen when you're in a certain alignment with that tzaddik. So that's how I was saying that story. He went to this tzaddik and that tzaddik because he learned a lot, but that wasn't the root of his soul. Because there's a belonging to, there's a closeness and root between this tzaddik and you. You're sort of under that root. And you would get a glimpse when you'd see this person of the potential of yourself and really sort of the root of yourself. So it wasn't simply the person was sort of mimicking in any way the tzaddik, but it was allowing for a glimpse of the root of that person, which is found through the encounter with that tzaddik that shares that root. And that's what really was going on. There's a shared root over there. So this is all one type of Rebbe. This is a very different type of Rebbe. This is really what is meant by a Rebbe, by a tzaddik, within this concept. Then you have a different type, right? And this type is not a tzaddik in the way we use that word, really. Not a tzaddik. But the person is greater. That's the word Rebbe, is from the word Rav, means greater than. So in a Rebbe and a Talmud, you have a greater and a lesser. Right? See, as friends, you have equals. Right? Like chaver, for the chibur, attachment. You're attached together as equals. But the Rebbe and Talmud is greater, Rav, greater than. So that is not necessarily a tzaddik, but this person is greater. This person is greater in chachma and wisdom, greater in Torah, and they're greater in how they develop the neshama. Now that's more recognition that we could even understand. But this first type, it's a very neshama-dik thing. That's a very soul type of thing. Okay? And it could be that a person has a true experience of it, and it could be not. It could be a person sort of taken by someone that's very charismatic, and that's not necessarily that experience. The second type is one that we can understand. That's a Rebbe. That person goes to yeshiva, you have a Rebbe, right? When you meet someone as a Rebbe, that's a recognition. That's something that's much more within the sphere of our understanding, our comfortability, and our recognition. So that person is not necessarily a tzaddik, but the person is a Rebbe to you. The person could be a Mora Derech, they could be a guide. That's also a Rebbe. But that person is not necessarily a tzaddik. So we'll talk more about these distinctions and how the distinctions are important, how to go with it. Let's just conclude with this very beautiful story that Rav Mottel brings here, just to understand what it means to have a connection with a Rebbe and tzaddik. Suras Kesher LeRebbe b'Tekufos Ahim, to understand the connection between to a Rebbe in those days. Nitein Litzayir Misipur, you can understand, you can imagine from the following story. Shekvod Kedushas Rabbeinu Zecher Tzaddik v'Kodesh Levracha Rag L'Saper, that the Rebbe of Stuchin, is Rav Mottel's Rebbe. Rav Mottel is Rebbe of Stuchin Rebbe. His Rebbe was the previous Rebbe in Stuchin, but he would tell the following story. Shala'achar Patiras Harav HaKadosh HaMa'ar V'Shemesh. After the passing of the great tzaddik, the Ma'ar V'Shemesh. The Ma'ar V'Shemesh was one of the early tzaddikim. He was a Talmud of the Rebbe Rebbe Elimelech of Lezhinsk. And he wrote the Sefer known as the Ma'ar V'Shemesh. His name was of Kleinimus Kalman. I forget his last name. Kleinimus Kalman. His yahrzeit was just very recent. And so the Ma'ar V'Shemesh, he had a son. Hayibeno Harav HaKadosh Haguta Yid Min Shteit. He had a son who was his Talmud, who was known as the good Jew of Neshteit. It's a very great tzaddik. It's known as the Guta Yid. That term, Guta Yid, was a term for a tzaddik in those days. A good Jew. Good Jew. That's how they referred to tzaddikim. So the Guta Yid was a son. Bocha u'mismar al zeh shneshir b'leRebbe. He was extremely broken. He was in terrible mourning that he was left without a Rebbe. Sheyadrich oso b'avodas Hashem. They would guide him in the service of God. Now he was already a very great tzaddik, the Guta Yid. He was an older person. He was completely broken that he had no Rebbe to guide him in the service of God. So one day his father appeared to him in a dream. They told him to go travel to the Ropshitz Rebbe. Now the Rebbe of Ropshitz, of Naftali of Ropshitz, was a Talmud of the Chos of Lublin, the Rebbe of Lublin. And And Rapshus is his own path, and Chassidus actually is Tuchin. Mottel is in that path of Rapshus. That's where it comes from. And Rav Naftali of Rapshus was a very sort of enigmatic tzaddik, very interesting sort of tzaddik. He says, "V'yadu adarko shalav hakodesh mirapshus." Now he had his own thing. Shekol pam she'egia elav mishu litos al kankano. Whenever someone would come, literally to knock on his brain, to hit on his head, means they were checking him out. Like, who is this guy? You know? He would completely hide himself. He would, in Rapshus in general, their whole path was like the great tzaddikim didn't show anything externally. It was very, very internal. And they had all these different ways of trying to hide themselves that couldn't recognize their righteousness. They say like, people say like a tzaddik nister means like a hidden tzaddik. And in the Rapshus they would say, no, the tzaddikim you think are tzaddikim, they're hidden from you. You don't even know their righteousness. So that was their part of their thing. He literally behaved like a simple Jew. Not just externally, but even internally. In other words, on that level of spirituality where great people would meet, even there he would hide himself. That's what it means to be a hidden tzaddik. On that subtle level of the internal, to hide yourself. So he would hide himself. So this is what he did. When the Gutta Yid came to check him out, to knock on his head, he behaved like a villager. Like in those days, these simple Yidden, precious beyond, but like mamish, ignorant and simple, unlearned, unsophisticated. That's how he behaved. He got into these fights with the maidservant before he made Kiddush. He would do all this shtick to completely throw off anyone that would come to check him out. It was very hard to reach. The Gutta Yid was really bothered by this. He couldn't tolerate it. He was waiting for Shabbos to be done with. Like, I'm out of here. As soon as Shabbos is out, I'm leaving this place. As soon as Shabbos left, he went back to his host. He started to cry, completely broken again. He doesn't have a Rebbe. Al Shein Rebbe, he didn't have a Rebbe. So we don't understand this level of sincerity, like what it means to search. Through his crying, he fell asleep. His father came to him in a dream again. Said to him the following thing. If you really want to know who the Rapshus Rebbe is, get up, go to him right now. Don't ask any permission from anybody. Just go in. Just be chutzpahdik. Just go into his room. Don't ask anybody permission. So immediately he got up. And he went to the Rebbe and he opened the door. Without asking a question of anybody. Is given a Rapshus Chassid. He says, and he became a Chassid of Rapshus. In other words, he walked into the room and something happened. In other words, his true self was revealed. That the Gutta Yid felt and experienced the truth of this person and his level of righteousness, and immediately he became his student. In other words, all of his masquerade was off. The show, all the shtick was removed, and his true self was showing. It was that true inner self that he would hide, but who he was in his inner room, when he opened the door without asking permission, and he didn't have all this concealment on him, he was able to see who he was. And then he became his student.
What was the motivation for having this guard, this effort to not reveal himself? It was an exercise in bittul, or were they just trying to not appear to be as great as they were?
Yeah, that's a good question. Most of the tzaddikim can behave this way. Because if you want to be a student, show me you're for real. The Rabbi Elimelech was very, very harsh with his students. And he pushed them off. And was very, very strong with them. You want to really be my students? Show me that you really mean it. You need to make them a serious nefesh. You have to give of yourself. That you're really after it. Or else you can do something else. This is very, very, this is a very, very great relationship.
I'm not understanding. If to have someone follow you, you have to appear as being the leader or being the target of something that people want to follow. So if the tzaddik is concealing himself, then the person who's seeking out a rebbe or a tzaddik is going to look elsewhere because they're not going to. How would they? There's nothing to pursue. You don't know if this person is a tzaddik or he's a common person or a shmuck. There's nothing to pursue.
Yeah, because to be a Talmud, a student, means you have to follow him. To be a student means to really have this belonging, this relationship. You have to show that you want it. You can have an external relationship. You can be inspired by it. But this type of relationship that exists between Rebbe and Talmud is of a different type. And it was incumbent on the student to show his meaning. If you want to attend the class, that's fine. If you want to come to the prayers, that's fine. If you want to be a student, a Talmud, and that close relationship, you have to show you want it. You have to show you mean it. That's on the student. This is not a relationship that we're so familiar with. We're familiar today with the rabbis running after us. So this is like very not familiar. Oh, the rabbi's trying to get me to come to this class, and the rabbi's calling me again. That's not the game that was going on. You come to me. You show me. This is very, very different than how, first of all, how things operate today. It's very different. The true way is the Talmud goes after the Rebbe, not the Rebbe goes after the Talmud. You have to go after your roots. You really want it. You're really searching for it. That's a different type of pursuit. So number one, we're not familiar with that. Number two, it's of a different relationship. You want to come to a class, that's fine. It doesn't need much. But if you really want this, that requires mesiras nefesh. You have to really be willing to give yourself. That's what the relationship is. So you have to show that. Or else that's not what this is.
Hidden cases. I think he's asking, how would you even know this person might be a potential hidden side? Maybe it's just like a completely normal person, simple person. Why would you even try to pursue him? Someone told you that this guy's really a hidden side? Is that?
So that's usual, that's usual, but not necessarily always. It requires a great mesiras nefesh.
What?
A giving of yourself. To really search it out. Sometimes the tzaddikim themselves sometimes they wanted a certain sort of private way, but mostly you had to sort of pick up on that sense, either yourself or by guidance from others, that there's something over here, and then you would be slowly led to it, or else a person would just become a follower of a sort of a leader. But this type of Rebbe was a type of Rebbe that you had to seek out the relationship.
But that's part of the process. It's not like, oh, he's my Rebbe, right? It's like a journey, right? Like you really have to put effort not into just, approaching the Rebbe, but observing that he's a tzaddik, right? I mean, see how he is with the community, to see his impact, to see whatever, right? I mean, that requires like probably a lengthy observation, right? Unless you have some, intuitive insight into, oh, this is my guy. You know what I'm saying?
That's correct. That's right. And that's why in these cases, the people would really spend time. This is a serious pursuit. They would spend time with each Rebbe trying to understand, who they were, what their path really was. It was a seriousness of a different nature. And it would take that. Sometimes it can happen sort of like in a moment, like in that story, but it also would take a certain amount of spending time and observation with that person.
To put things in perspective, the first type of Rebbe you were describing with the elevated soul, who has all the souls within, nowadays, where would we see such a person? Or do we see such a person?
Okay, we'll get into that next time. Yeah. But the first thing is to really understand what does it really mean to have a Rebbe. What is that really? And what does that relationship really mean? And it's very different than today. Very, very different. It's very different than the whole setup. It's very different than the whole setup is today. And then you have to understand these two different types of Rebbes. There are different types of Rebbes. It's important to understand there's a tzaddik in the true sense, and there's a Rebbe. And then the nature of the relationship, of really what it was, and what it should be. And just to appreciate that. And then there's the question, okay, so what's relevant to us? That's the next question. So what does it mean for us? Where do we go with that? What's meaningful to us? How does it translate to today?
So as it translates to today, were these tzaddikim only like from a particular period, or in modern times do we have people that are widely acknowledged to be tzaddik?
I'll get into this next time. Okay. Again, it's a sugya. It's a whole topic of understanding, and it's okay not to get the whole thing in the first thing. We're describing a type of relationship of things that we're not familiar with necessarily. I say we're not familiar with. Period. We're not familiar with this, and also of a different caliber type of individuals that we don't meet, although we could, and therefore it's not going to exactly sit with all the understandings of relationships that we have, right, in a line, right. So it's a sugya. We'll have to get into it and to understand it better, and to draw ourselves closer to it. Remember, it's not trying to fit these types of things into my head. We have preconceived understandings of these types of relationships. Because we think of a rabbi and a congregant, or even a rebbe and a talmid and yeshiva. That's not what this is. It's different. So don't try to stuff it into your preconceived notion. You have to expand yourself and go out of that to understand what I'm talking about. So if it doesn't fit into your right, perfect, because it's not supposed to. We're describing a very different type of relationship of a lesser to a greater, of a student to a rebbe, a chassid to a tzaddik. It's not one that we know. It's actually very different. So if it doesn't make sense, perfect, it shouldn't. But as we draw ourselves closer to it, we will make sense to it. Okay. Good week.